Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Thank you for joining me with today's upload. Before we get into it, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and my merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below. Merch is displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, the links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It doesn't cost you a cent. Click that like button. It takes half a second. If you do not want to miss any of the content, click that bell icon and please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all these things, they really do help this channel to continue to grow and go. And guys, they do matter. And now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get on with today's upload, shall we? All right, guys, today I've got a really awesome upload to share with you. I've got some terrifying encounters. I got a video clip that I'd like to kind of go over. I talked a little bit about it last week, and I think it's time that we break it down real quick because it's just disturbing. And I guess what we'll do is we'll start the upload with an encounter, jump to the video clip, finish off with some more encounters, and that will finish off the state of New Jersey. In a comment, I saw someone had said, hey, you're doing state by state. Not really. What I did was I just grabbed a state folder and, started sharing encounters out of that folder, which happened to be New Jersey. I don't know which folder I will pick next, but I will get through all. I just didn't want to do it in alphabetical order. Don't ask me why, because I really don't know why, but let's get into the encounter. Jeff, I'd like to thank you for replying to my email. I have an encounter to share with you, and I've never told anyone about this because I knew the ridicule I would suffer because of it. I'm 55 years old, and I believe it is time to share. I feel comfortable doing so with you and my fellow subscribers. This encounter took place 30 years ago. I was 24 years old in Lambertville, New Jersey. That's my mom's hometown. I have a large family on her side, all from that area. I'm from Bucks County, PA, but I spent so much time with my uncles and cousins in Lambertville that I feel like I have two hometowns. I know both areas like the back of my hand. Like I said, I'm 24. I was pretty athletic back then. I'd been hunting and fishing and camping since I was young with my dad, uncles, and cousins on both sides, so I'm pretty well versed in outdoor survival. I was going through a very hard time in life. I had suffered a very great personal loss. I was lost and angry. I got myself into a little bit of legal trouble, fighting, drinking type of stuff. I decided I needed to just get away, isolate myself, get in touch with my spiritual side, do some self-evaluation just to get my head and life back in order. But where? Where could I go and do that? I thought of a perfect place right outside of Lambertville, New Jersey, a happy place, where I spent a lot of time with my cousins fishing and camping. We called the place the Third Hole. Don't ask me why. It's just always been called that. Now, to get to Third Hole, you had to walk. You couldn't drive, so I parked my car by an old cemetery. The easiest way to get there was to walk along some train tracks, going through the woods and thickets. It's pretty hard and would take too long now. I haven't been there for over 10 years or so, but knew the way quite well. I'd have to walk approximately 5 miles down the tracks. It was a beautiful August morning, a little hot, but that didn't bother me. I had my rucksack supplies, my fishing rods, my .357, and a 12-gauge shotgun, and its case, as well as a cooler with food and soda and water. My tackle gear was in my rucksack. I locked my car and started my trek to the Third Hole. I felt good. I felt at home, peaceful. I walked slow and steady. at a leisurely pace. It took me about 2.5 hours to get there, I guess. I don't remember. I didn't take a watch with me. When I got to the third hole, which is by and partly under a train trestle, an old one. Now, it's deep in the woods, but the area around was cut down in a circle about 200 yards circumference. Long ago, I guess, the train line, mainly a freight line, that was third hole, is just a water hole about 70 feet around, fed by a stream, and it's stocked with trout, bass, carp, crappie, you know, the usual fish species in PA. But the game fish seem to make their way here and stay in the hole. It was never big fishing there. Only locals knew about it. My family, being one of the nearest houses 3 miles away or so, immediately when I got there, I noticed that it hadn't been used for quite a long time. It was overgrown, grass and weeds. So I made myself a little camping area. I pitched my tent, made a fire pit, collected rocks, made the circle, then collected firewood for later. In the evening, there was a very large old stump, a couple of them, for a matter, next to the camp, which I would use as a table and a stool to sit on, so I built my campfire between them. I finished camp preparations and set my rods up. I had my lures live bait. I used one with live bait and one with lures. I figured I would try and catch my dinner. I set my rods up and took out my Walkman, placed my headphones on my head, casted out my bait line, and used my lure rod. I got lost in some Led Zeppelin. I was at peace, no anger, no racing thoughts, no distractions. This was going to be a nice weekend alone, or so I thought. Boy, I was wrong. I fished, no worries, caught a few small trout, threw them back, changed my bait line. Some small fish nibbled off, but really didn't catch anything large. I kept fishing. I finally caught 4 nice rainbow trout. That was my dinner. I cleaned them, washed them in the stream, laid them on some tin foil on the stump, seasoned them with some seasonings that I had brought. I brought some wild rice with me, as well as my camp skillet and foldable bottle used for spring water for the rice, which I started cooking first on the fire since it would take longer than the fish. Kicked back and started to watch the sunset. I was listening to some Pink Floyd by the time my rice was done. It was early, but a little dark. I got my Coleman lantern, lit it, the whole campsite lit right up. I split my fish, started cooking them over the fire, slowly turning them. Man, did I feel relaxed and great. Every fiber of my being was loose, and I felt comfortable in my own skin for the first time in a really long time. I was hungry. I couldn't wait to get into some of those fresh fish and wild rice. My fish was done, and I was drooling. It was totally black now, except for my lantern and the fire. I took the fish off the split, placed it on my tin, scooped some rice on it, and sprinkled some salt, grabbed a soda from my cooler, took my headphones off, and that's when it hit me. An odd feeling telling me something was not right. I put my plate down by my feet and listened to the night around me. Boom. That was when I noticed I had my headphones on all day rocking out, that I didn't notice there was no sound, no crickets, no frogs, no kind of anything moving or sputtering in the woods, not even bats. Now, you have to understand I'm used to the woods. I don't scare or freak out easily. In fact, never. I'm 6'4", 290. I used to work out, and I took some old school Muay Thai. I'm also a crack shot. I reached over to the stump and pulled my shotgun to me, Checked the loads. It was loaded with double-aught buck. I had my 357 on my hip with hollow points. I shouldn't have felt uneasy, but I did. And I don't know why, at least at that moment, I didn't. I picked my plate back up and started slowly eating. After a few moments, my uneasiness grew. Something told me to slowly turn around. I felt like I was being watched as I slowly turned my head. I totally lost my mind. Crouching on the stump behind me, just to my left, about 8 feet away, was a walking, breathing nightmare, only from horror movies. It was a werewolf, but that couldn't be right. It was only a quarter moon. I closed my eyes, figuring when I opened them, this hallucination would be gone. But I was wrong. When I opened them back up, it was still there. And yes, I said he because I saw his genitalia. And he was all boy. He was squatted like a man on his horses, with his arms resting on his thighs. And yes, his arms, this thing had hands, not paws, very long and slender, very similar to a raccoon. What is an opposable thumb and very long, sharp claws at the end, long tufts on top of its ears, a long snout, but wider than a normal dog, and a mouth full of what looked to be sharp teeth. They really didn't glisten. They looked kind of yellowish. The eyes were a golden yellow, and they seemed to glow from their own light. Now, like I said, I'm a pretty big guy, and this thing was twice, again, as wide as I am, then some. Even though its haunches, it was over 6 feet. This thing had arms that were twice as big as mine. Its chest and shoulders were just huge. Its thighs were humongous, as were its calves. Its stomach looked lean. It was black as coal. Its muzzle had some gray around it. There were some streaks of gray in its fur. There was a tail, short, hanging over the stump. Taking all of this in only took a couple of seconds, but it felt like hours. There was no strong odor or smells coming from it. It made no sound coming up behind me. Hell, I couldn't even tell you how long it had been there. I just knew I was dead. I can't stand dead. I couldn't stand a chance with this thing on a physical level. Those claws would cut me in half in seconds, and I knew it. The only chance I had were my firearms. I slowly eased my hand to my shotgun. When I did, his eyes moved to my hand, and he ever so slightly moved forward as if he was going to spring on me. I slowly moved my hand back, and the creature relaxed. Now I smelled an odor of crap, really strong, and realized that it was coming from me. I had crapped my pants out of pure fear. I swear this thing smiled and actually sniffed the air, leaning its head slightly towards me, its muzzle wrinkled, almost saying, "You stink." Then something strange happened. I could see it relax. It just relaxed as I did earlier. Its shoulders loosened up and it slumped a little. Its biceps loosened. Its leg muscles seemed to loosen. And my fear seemed to dissipate greatly. It then looked at the fish and I said, "Do you want them? They're yours. Take them." He looked at me, cocked his head sideways, slowly lowered himself off of the stump to the ground, lowered my head and eyes away from him, and slowly, very slowly, scooted back from the fire and stump. And from my shotgun, my 357 was still on my hip, but I knew if I reached for it, I was good as dead. I kept scooting back, and he kept watching me. When I was 20 feet away or so, he moved. I stopped scooting back and just froze. He stood up At his full height, he had to be at least 9 feet tall. And that was when I noticed that his wrist was really narrow and that his legs were built just like a dog's. He took one step toward the fire. That was 8 feet in one step at least. He looked at me, then reached down his arms, fell to his knees, really long from elbow. They were abnormally long. He grabbed the fish, looked at me, and just leapt across the stream, which was about 20 feet or so. And he was gone. It was so fast that it took me a while to realize what had just happened and that he was gone. I just sat there shaking and crying. I'm not ashamed to say that. It was terrifying. This creature stood on its hind legs like a man. This thing was not made or supposed to exist, but it did. It was a killing machine. I was and am a very lucky person. I never went back to the third hole again, nor have I ever camped out again. I still fish during the day with others, and I don't go into the woods alone ever. So that's my encounter, believe me or not. I don't really care. I just know what happened. I was there, and I wish to all holy that I wasn't. I walked out of third hole, broken, scared, with crap in my pants, all night, with my guns and my lantern. I don't remember doing it. In fact, I don't even remember driving home back to Lambert. And I never went back to my family. They have to come to me or call me if they want to see or talk to me. Thank you for reading my encounter. I still have nightmares 30 years later. Hopefully this will get better. I know it wasn't a werewolf at all, but a dogman, although that knowledge does not make it any less terrifying. But I finally was able to tell someone. God bless, and thank you for everything. Respectfully, E. All right, wow, I have actually been looking for that encounter. I completely forgot that it had happened in New Jersey. I think I'm going to sit down and kind of rewrite it out so it's a little easier to read next time I read it. But it's a terrifying encounter. And you know what is interesting? I've said it a couple different times why I think there are certain locations of multiple encounters. And I said when people or communities are, just really hopeless, I guess, would be the best, like when the mining crews pulled out of Appalachia, those small little communities, and all the job security was gone and people were scared and people didn't know what to do. They were depressed. And I think these things can sense that. Well, once again, he's going through a very hard time, personal loss, legal issues. Another thing that popped out is that he had to park by a cemetery. And I thought that was pretty interesting, those two things, because, they just go hand in hand with what we talk about. And a lot of researchers who really are thinking about, hey, what the heck is going on, have that same kind of opinion. I guess the next thing we'll do is let's jump into this video clip. Here it is. All right, so there's the video clip, clearly AI generated, which really does hurt this community. There's going to be an influx of AI generated photos, AI generated videos. And I was talking to a fellow YouTuber researcher, and there's going to be an influx of AI generated encounters to go along with these videos and photos. And they will only be on certain pop-up channels that just pop up out of nowhere. Those that are taking advantage of this AI creation, or I don't even have a word for it. I wanted to say a different word, believe me, and it started with S and it ends with it. But this really hurts the community. It hurts researchers. It hurts whether, it hurts Kirk Stokes, Paul Chafin, two video and photo researchers. It hurts kind of me, Dark Waters, Politis, whoever, because the simple fact that we've done the research. I've spent hundreds of hours researching attacks. Chafin and Stokes, hundreds of hours videoing and taking stills. Politis, 411, an amazing wealth of information brought to the public. Don't know the guy, don't really care for him, but one hell of a researcher, and this hurts. This AI BS hurts all of us and the community, because I'm only bringing this video up because I've gotten a few emails saying, hey, check this out. This is crazy. Now, that doesn't say anything negative about those folks. What it says is it says that people are really fascinated with this subject and want a clear photo, a clear video so bad that they will entertain that thought that may be real for just that split second, and that's no good. That really is no good. I can't. Anyway, so me and my friend, another researcher, YouTuber, we're talking, and there are going to be now AI generated stories, AI generated encounters to go along with these video clips and these whatever shorts. And they will not be on channels like mine or Dark Waters or any other reputable channels. But they will be on these little pop-up channels, that check this video clip out. In Kentucky, there was, and they'll show you this god-awful AI generated photo. And, I've seen one of these creatures. I know what I saw. I know what I saw looks like. But folks that haven't seen them, they just want so badly to have that clear photo, that clear video. Like I said, they'll entertain just for that 1 second. But that 1 second is enough to hurt the whole community. So we have to be leery of this. And unfortunately, there's nothing we can do, because with the growth of technology, unfortunately, things like this pollute the community. It's already polluted enough with animosity, ego, and this and that, but God help us. Anyway, now we have to be vigilant about the information we're getting. Goodness gracious. Anyway, with that, guys, I'm not insulting anyone who may have entertained the idea of this being real. I know that it's for that simple reason that I just said. We all want just that one video, that one clear pic. To me, Kirk Stokes, that video, those 2 videos that I have that I've shared on my channel, to me, that's enough. Hopefully, we can eventually get some amazing video evidence and photo evidence. But I hope that this AI BS doesn't harm the community, that when we do, people think it's fake. So that's about it on that. Let's get into another encounter. And tonight's final part of the upload. Hey Jeff, I've been meaning to share with you my Dogman sighting here in northern New Jersey. One night, spring 2018, my wife and I were watching TV in the living room at around 9:30 p.m. Sliding glass doors were to my left. The curtains were closed because people around the complex walk around to get exercise, even at night. It's weird that people can look inside, and it bugs us out when they appear out of nowhere. So, at one point, we both hear this low growling noise that reverberates, even making my chest and stomach kind of vibrate. And at first, I can't tell where it's coming from, until, after giving my wife a look of WTF, I turned towards the sliding glass door. The sound, it seemed to be coming from that direction. But how is it making me feel so strange inside? It lasted 4 to 5 seconds, and once it stopped, we both still had the looks of WTF on our faces, trying to figure out what in the heck that sound was from and where it came from. My wife offered an explanation that the guy in the apartment upstairs from us must have been moving furniture or something, and that's what had made that noise. True, our neighbor was a lousy upstairs neighbor, and nearly every night seemed to be making noise by sliding things around up there or dropping his bowling ball or whatever. But this noise was unlike anything that ever came from his nightly activities, and she agreed with me that the sound seemed to be coming from outside. Looking back now, I wonder why we weren't more cautious or creeped out, but we went outside for a cigarette every 30 minutes or so, and that time was just about here. So maybe 15 minutes after we heard that strange sound, we went out back to smoke our cigarette. It was almost 10 p.m., and the night was chilly and dead quiet. With the woods less than 100 feet away from our building, which was on the outskirts of the complex, where there was a large field of grass before the woods, where a transit train ran. What bothered us was the smell that met our senses when we went out to smoke. I waited to hear what my wife had to say before I said anything, and I didn't have to wait but a few seconds before she said, "Ew, babe, what's that smell?" It was a sour smell of rotting animal carcass, blood, urine mixed together, and it was all around us. That night there was no breeze. The air was chilly, as I said before, and pretty still. So it was hard to tell where the smell was coming from. We figured it had to be coming from the woods to our left, where they passed closest to our apartment, since there was no garbage bags left anywhere outside by any of the neighbors that we could see. That smell was not of garbage. It was the smell of death, plus urine and rotting blood. I've never smelled anything quite like that, except maybe roadkill. But all those smells combined with something way worse. We both finished our cigarettes and had enough of the stench and went back in to watch some more TV. 30 minutes later, we came back out to have another cigarette. I checked to see if there was anything near the door before opening it, and strangely this time the smell was gone. Neither of us could catch a whiff of it anymore. The air was still, without the slightest breeze, not to mention very quiet. Where'd the smell go? And more so, where did it come from in the first place? We had no idea, but once we talked more about it, the possibility of that growling sound and the terrible smell was coming from the same source. And we weren't so keen on going outside anymore that night. Hey, maybe it was nothing, but we weren't feeling that. Ever hear of anything like that before, Jeff? Could have been our imagination. Sure, I know, but you gotta admit that together, those two things, the smell and noise, don't make a person who's heard stories of Bigfoot and Dogman feel like hanging outside near the woods anymore. Anyway, this is an experience I heard from my sister and brother-in-law. They were driving home on Route 181 in Jefferson Township from dinner. That stretch of road, there are very few homes on that section. It was very dark at night, no street lights. I have since driven down it with my wife during the day, and it's pretty woodsy and snakes its way through the hills. Well, as they were driving, with my brother-in-law behind the wheel of his SUV, where the speed limit is 45 miles an hour, out of the darkness to their right comes an animal appearing to materialize out of the evening. It crosses a 2-lane road mere feet in front of their car. Its paws made contact with the pavement and then bounded off over a guardrail. My sister said for a split second she thought they may collide with this enormous wolf-looking thing, but her husband sort of froze and gripped the steering wheel instead of swerving, dumbfounded by what they were seeing. Once it was gone, the two of them went silent for a few moments. Then my sister spoke to her husband. "Do you remember that movie Silver Bullet?" "Yeah," he said. "That's what I saw too." When Kira and Kurt first relayed their story to me, it was Easter dinner at my mother-in-law's house. We had been talking about Bigfoot, and my girlfriend at the time asked me to tell my sister and her husband about Dogman and some of the YouTube videos that I had been listening to of people's sightings with these scary cryptids. I told them about your channel and Dark Waters, saying that to me some of the stories sounded fake, but more than a few really made the hair on my back of my neck really stand up. As I finished, Kurt, who had just a minute ago scoffed at Cammie's interest in Bigfoot, turned to Kara and said, "We should tell them what we saw," causing me to chuckle, thinking that he was joking with us, and that Kira would just start laughing or play around and make something up on the spot. Boy, was I wrong. When Kira proceeded to tell the story I told you just moments ago about a huge wolf on their road, she described it as being wide, 6 feet from nose to butt. It had a tail. It was pale gray, shaggy. She said that its proportions of this thing were not right, though, that its head was oversized and the shape of its body did not look like a natural wolf. Its front legs looked out of proportion with its body, and the way it moved was not right either. Like the proportions of its body caused it to move in a strange way, though it seemed very powerful and able to cover large distances in its strides. We have a wolf sanctuary not too far from here called the Lakota Wolf Preserve, and most everyone has heard of it. Kira has been there to see the timber and gray wolves in their outdoor enclosures. She's seen how large they are in real life and up close, no more than 10 feet away. behind 2 chain link fences that separate them from the visitors. She said that what she and her husband saw looked totally different from those wolves in that preserve, and the werewolf from the movie Silver Bullet popped into her head right away. Its proportions and sheer size, animal back, while it passed on all fours in front of the car, it was well above the hood. Its legs were long, and the animal came out of the woods, moving extremely fast from a high arcing leap, landing on its feet in the road, then springing back up to the left across the oncoming lane, making the entire distance, some 20 to 25 feet, look like it was exerted very little effort to travel before it practically flew into the woods and disappeared. I was listening to their experience with obvious excitement and asked them about the size and whatever other details they could provide, including the name of the road they had seen it on. Kira and Kurt both said it was huge, bigger than the front of the SUV. So yeah, that's really big. My wife and I were astonished. Kira had never told anybody about that, not until that day when she told us about the cryptid called the Dogman and how there were channels on YouTube dedicated to sharing their experiences. I've gotten to know Kurt a little better, and he is a no-nonsense guy. Well, that's my experience of what Kira and Kurt told me and my wife about their Silver Bullet encounter up here in northern New Jersey. I know that you've told some other experiences and sightings here in Jersey and hear those from you. I just wanted to send this experience so that your listeners knew that along with mountain lions and the Jersey Devil, looks like a Dogman, has made a home here as well. All right, so would you go outside? And I'm not ridiculing these folks. I'm just asking because I want to know. You hear a growl. 15 minutes later, you go out for a smoke and you smell this putrid stench. In a half an hour, would you go out for that second cigarette? I don't know. Maybe. And I'm wondering if, and I thought about this, and I forgot to ask these folks about this, but I think I might send them an email. If they have like this kind of porch with the sliding glass door where they can smoke their ciggies, I wonder if there's an overhang, right? If there's an overhang, I'm wondering if that Dogman was above them and that's how they were getting that stench if there was no wind, because it was right above them on the patio above them. You know what I mean? Anyway, guys, I really do appreciate everybody and all your support. Please don't take offense to me talking about that video and people thinking that it may be real, because you know what? I really do think that we all just want something so clear that we are willing to entertain anything at this point in time. We just have to be a little more, break it down a little bit. You know what I mean? I had a guy actually try to break Kirk Stokes' video down once. And I think that was the one and only time I really kind of was like, I don't know how you see something. It was pretty crazy. But anyway, guys, thank you. And stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy. And may the Great Spirit watch over us all. May He guide us down that path we call life.